Welcome to Conversion Optimization. I'm Dante. If you've not joined me before, I've got a little bit of an introduction about me, but this is a live one. So if you're sitting in the participant list right now, you can message through the Zoom chat or through the Q&A. If you're watching on YouTube, you can ask some questions below in the comments, and I'll be monitoring those to watch those as well. Please do give me the comments along the way. If you've got questions that come up at any point, please also feel free to add those. So let's get underway and do it as quickly as we can, hey? Conversion optimization is a key differentiator in success of Kmart Australia in that every store is optimized to sell what people want to sell quickly, simply, and without fuss. This is the head of department stores in the Wesfarmers Group, in other words, the managing director of Kmart Australia. And they've been incredibly successful where their competitors internally like Target and like external ones like Big W have been very, very unsuccessful. And there's a little bit of a story that will tell you a bit more about the lengths for conversion optimization that Kmart will often go to in order to make sure they've got the right thing for the right customers all at the right time. So who's this for today? It's for people who have e-commerce websites, can be really useful for that. For people who have websites that are based around services. Also, if you've got a physical store, this could be very, very useful for you as well. If you've got a physical office, there's also some ideas in here that may actually be particularly useful for you. And it's for pretty much wherever people buy. It looks into a bit of the psychology around conversion and about the processes and right down to even colors of buttons that you may want to consider, as well as clutter and the kinds of wording that you will use on websites to encourage people to become more than visitors, but to become customers as well, which is ultimately what we want them to do. Now, if I keep looking over this side, it's because my screen's over this side, so please don't be distracted by that. I am taking notice of what's going on. I've got a screen right in front of me, which is where your chat comes up. I've got one over here, which is completely irrelevant and probably just playing a background graphic. And over here is where I've got the actual slides that I'm working with. What we're going to cover today is a little bit about A/B testing and what that means. We're looking at what customer value proposition is. That's going to sound like it's a bit of a technical marketing term, but to be honest, it's quite simple to understand. We're going to look at using the right language on your website, as well as urgency in that language, and removing customer concerns and making it a lot easier for people to trust you to turn into someone who's throwing money at you. That's hopefully what we can get it to. You watch this again through the Business Station YouTube channel. I've got tons of videos up there. I've also got them on my own video channel as well on YouTube. You can just search for my name and you'll find me really, really easily. As I said, my name is Dante St James. I'm a Facebook Blueprint lead trainer. I've got a lot of certification to the Facebook network and with Google as well. I work with Shopify as a partner, digital springboard delivery partner, my own agency Clickstarter, and I've been working quite closely with all these other partners as well, especially the ASBAS Digital Solutions Program with Business Station has been a very important part of that, along with government programs such as Be Connected and Stay Smart Online. A quote here from Wikipedia defines internet marketing conversion optimization, or conversion rate optimization, as we often see it, is a system for increasing the percentage of visitors that come to a website that then convert into customers, or more generally, to take any desired action on your web page. What is it that you want people to do on your website or web page? And conversion optimization is the process of making sure you do everything you can to get people to do whatever your most desired outcome is on that web page. Now that could mean book now, it could mean inquire now, it could mean buy now, or it could mean just hang around my web page for a little while so I can get my brand across to who you are. Now there's 5 key ways that you can address that conversion argument. You can do it through A/B testing. There's this customer value proposition, which I promise will make a lot of sense very shortly. There's the use of right language and urgency, and removing customer concerns, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. Now, A/B testing can best be described as this little test that Kmart Australia actually ran in Washington State in the US, in the suburbs and the towns around Seattle. Now, Kmart has an in-house brand here in Australia called Anko, A-N-K-O. It stands for a new kind of shirt, a new kind of homeware, a new kind of something. What they did when they did this test, they wanted to test out for something very specific. Now, strangely enough, it wasn't that they were testing to go into America as a store over there. It wasn't that at all. They wanted to test a bunch of different ideas, some smaller stores versus larger stores. So the sort of stores that you'd see if you'd see, let's say, a Lush Cosmetics store or a body shop, or something smaller, more like a very small homemaker store. Now they tested sites that were inside shopping centers and outside of shopping centers. They tested when you walked into the door that you walked straight into homewares, or whether you walked into clothing and fashion. They tried building, setups like you got on the right here, which is a traditionally bright, still getting over my sore throat from yesterday, sorry. Traditionally bright decor and very bright lighting, and they had some darker, more spotlit lighting as well. And they looked at more higher income socio-economic areas and some lower socio-economic areas as well. The whole purpose of this was they were testing for this news story that we got back in Australia earlier this year, which is that regional Target stores have been closed. So a lot of the Target country stores were being closed down and turned into what they would call either Kmarts, if they were a rather large store, or there are smaller ones like Catherine and the NT, and a lot of those very small regional centers. The idea of turning them into a new Kmart kind of Target country Kmart hybrid model that they hadn't yet defined. They were still running this test to be able to tell what that format was going to exactly be like. So they settled on what we call now K-Hub. So if you're interested in the outcome of that story, there's a new lot of stores coming online in 2021 called K-Hub in country areas, which is the size of a Target country, but bringing in a lot of Kmart things as well as other delivery services from things like Catch of the Day and eBay even. So you can click and collect things at your local, what was a Target country store. It's a hub for online and real world shopping. That's what they're trying to do. And all those lessons they learned were from the Anko concept that they ran in the US. So A/B testing when it comes to a website is a little bit different. Instead of going and saying, are we starting off our shop with homewares or are we starting off with fashion? You could say that I've got a version A of my website, which might have pink as the dominant color. And then I've got a version B of my website, which may have maybe purple as a dominant color. Now, as I send people in, I'm sending people into both of those. 50% of the traffic's going pink, 50% of the traffic's going purple. And when that happens, you get an idea about what is the most successful outcome in terms of people doing the things you want them to do in each version of that website. Now, you may think, well, I had enough trouble just building a website, let alone building a second version of a website, and how would I even begin to transfer people the other way? Thankfully, there are a lot of built-in tools with things like Wix, Weebly, not so much Weebly, Squarespace, and a lot of the WordPress page builders like Divi and Elementor that will allow you to run A/B tests on certain elements, including whole page layouts. So you can see if people are doing the things you want to do more on one version or doing it more on the second version. So if you've got pink getting half of your traffic, are pink people buying more stuff than people who are going through the purple version? And secondly, if you look at whether the pink people are doing more bookings than the purple version, and then you might also test for something else, which could be, are pink people actually spending more per transaction than people who are going through the purple side of the website as well? Once you do that, you can start to go, it's clear that on the purple side of the website, people are buying more often, they're buying greater value stuff. They're also doing things that are far more interesting and going to a lot more research lengths within the website. They're doing more on our website than the people going through the pink side. Once you know that, you can go, okay, I'm turning my test off and I'm transferring all my traffic through to the purple side of the website. Now that is a highly, very much simplified way of looking at conversion optimization using an A/B test. So the things you can test for on a website can include things like headlines. So different kinds of headlines. Do you do clickbait, or do you do something which is a lot more traditional? Do you use colors? Now, colors are probably one of the most powerful things you can do because they're quite easy to change. So if you're starting to do colors, like for instance, button colors, you can change things like red buttons to green buttons, or green buttons to pink buttons, or pink buttons to gray buttons. What you can test out whatever it is you think is going to be the thing that may get people to do something differently. Traditionally, buttons are usually green and red based upon what you want them to do. The reason for that being that green and red are very primal colors when it comes to stop, go, danger, safety. Green buttons have often been very much used for things like go ahead and do something. So add to cart buttons are usually green because they're considered to be a color that people trust and it looks safe, even though it may not necessarily be that at all. And you might also have the story of the placement of buttons. Now, the placement of buttons can be very, very important in that buttons that are left aligned, center aligned, or right aligned may be really simple for people to just naturally flow down as they're reading to, depending upon who you're dealing with. On Chinese language websites, Arabic language websites, making things right aligned makes sense because their languages are right aligned. But if you're writing in Roman script like our own language, English, and many of the European languages, then left aligned is where you're going to go. And having a button left aligned with your text is probably going to help people naturally move down from reading to converting and clicking that button for you. Having a center aligned button when all of your other stuff is left or right aligned can be a little bit disjointed and the eye doesn't naturally flow down through there. What your button is doing is essentially giving a psychological spike to say, hey, here's an action. Here's the next thing to do. Do this. And if that's not in the same line of sight as you're writing, you've got that danger of people just simply skipping over it because there's so many distractions in the world, so many things going on at the same time as they're looking at your website. Your page layout, the copy that you're writing, how you describe your product, whether it's a lot more descriptive, whether it's a lot more feature intensive, whether it's a lot more about... So my throat is actually causing me to actually have a breathing problem at the moment. So I do apologize in advance if I'm coming across as being very distracted, but it's actually really bad today. Also your calls to action. So saying things like buy now, add to cart, try now, see menu, book now, reserve now, all those things can have a very different psychological effect on somebody when it comes down to them either just reading a site as a visitor or going further into your site as somebody who is going to actively buy something. Now, just doing all these changes and changing images to videos or videos to text or something like that, on their own, they're not going to necessarily turn a customer who is just definitely never going to buy into a customer that's going to buy. But what they can do is for someone who has an intent to maybe buy, to jump them just over the edge into becoming a converting customer. So all these things, when they're combined and they're tested and you've been able to actually go, yes, everything on my website has been done in such a way that it inspires people to convert to do what I want them to do, then that is what helps you along. So you're not just having people just wander aimlessly through your website. You're taking them on a journey from exactly where you want them to start to exactly where you want them to finish. If you've got an e-commerce website, for example, or if you're taking bookings for your services, then you want them to come in, start at the top, be dazzled by your clever headline, see how you can solve their problem in text, and then give them a pathway to enable you to help them. And that's usually through what we call a call to action or a call to action button or something like that that's going to say inquire now, or even have the form embedded on the page that allows someone to take advantage of that straight away. With a lot of trades, for instance, that button is almost always going to be a call now with the phone number embedded into it. So when they pick up their phone, because they're usually going to be on their mobile, then you're able to go click on that button and there is your action. Call this phone number right now. So the customer value proposition, I promised you I was going to explain a little bit about what this is. It's about people understanding what it is you offer them. So it's understanding and explaining what it is you do, why someone should care about that, why they should believe you that you're able to provide that, and how they then begin to take advantage of what that offer is that you're doing. So if that offer is, for instance, I give away 2 hours of community time to not-for-profit community groups, here's how you take advantage. The customer is internally asking themselves, well, what is it you do for that 2 hours? Why should I care about that 2 hours? Oh, okay, that means something to me then. Well, how can I believe you that you're actually going to deliver what you said you're going to deliver? And how do I take advantage of this? So they're not actively asking that in their heads at the time. These are like automatic responses that are going on in most customers' heads as they work through things like social media, ads, catalogs, and e-commerce websites as well. The first thing you should look at being is very clear on what you offer. Now, McDonald's has got this right down pat. They've got very limited options to choose from on their website. So there's 3 menu items up there, and then there's 4 sort of, I guess, experiences you can go through on their website down the bottom. And they've got a slideshow that runs through as well. But that, again, only has a few options in that slideshow that are given to people to know what's going on, where they're going. On a mobile version of this website, it's actually a lot less. They've narrowed it down even more. They've got very short to the point headlines. New cheesy range, available for a limited time only. It's not trying to explain to you what the cheesy range is. It just says the new cheesy range, available for a limited time only. Find a Macca's restaurant. Mobile order and pay, Mac delivery to home, rate your Macca's experience. Short, sharp, to the point. It's very clear who they are and what they do. By keeping those options limited, they've meant that there's only a few directions you can go in that are going to be relevant. And it's going to be so easy for you to find what that direction is that you're actually looking to go into. Whether you're looking for a store, whether you're looking to learn more about something that McDonald's does, if you're looking to play games and play the Monopoly promotion they do every year, if you want to make excuse me, this is terrible. If you need to find out what more about the food that's in there, or looking at the menu, or whether you're looking to find a restaurant, you'll very, very easily find the things you're looking for based on that front page. This from a lemonade company in the US called Hubert's is, again, very, very clear. Only 1, 2, 3, 4 options in their top menu, and then 1 option in here, and there's nothing else below it. They've made it so obvious where you can go and what you can do. They've made it really easy. They're short to the point headlines are products, story, find us, the Hubert's, whatever that is in there. I think it's the Hubert's, it's to do with the stand where you can buy their stand from a stand in markets. That's mostly how they actually distribute themselves, and as well through stores. Now, they've got a very, very simple message about who they are and what they provide. It's happiness in a bottle. That's why it's been highlighted there. It's a very easy thing to be able to tell. What do I provide? Well, it's lemonade tea, because it's on that label and very clear to see, and it's happiness in a bottle, which is fantastic. It's a really simple message, like McDonald's with I'm loving it, Nike would just do it. Very, very simple brand messages that you can imagine what they mean. Happiness in a bottle sounds great. Everyone wants a bit of happiness, so why not get it in a bottle? Whether or not they can deliver on that is another story. This particular example from the hot dog cart store by Ben's Carts, which is the world's largest street food vendor resource website, that's got the largest, most comprehensive training website for pro vendors. That's a lot going on there, is not clear about what it is, who it is, or anything. Now, what they do is sell food trucks and food carts, and that's fantastic. We love that they do that. But there's so many options to choose from on this website, which is pretty ugly anyway. So they've got our carts, free training, shipping prices, NSF, whatever that is, questions, used carts, build a cart, financing, and even more that are hidden behind that giant X in there. Then they're making lots of claims. They've got 2 brands. They've got the hot dog cart store. They've got Ben's Carts. They've got Cater Pro Cart, Stand King. They've got so many different brands coming up in there, but it's hard to tell what is actually theirs. They're called the hot dog cart store, yet they're also the world's largest street food vendor resource site. So they're not only a store, they're also a source of resources to do with this particular subject matter. And they're a training website for pro vendors through video as well. They're trying to do a lot on one page, and it gets very, very confusing. In fact, what they've claimed themselves to be as being the world's largest street food vendor resource website has asked the question of this particular author saying, well, so what? What does that mean to me? Does that give me any sort of comfort that you actually know what I'm doing? Does it speak to me at all? No, it sounds like you're just boasting about the fact that you've got a very large website with a lot of stuff on it. So naturally, then people are going, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm just going to move on and not even really engage with that website unless I absolutely know I have to. So the CVP, which is the fancy way of saying, but remember back here, the customer value proposition. The CVP is all about being simple, very, very obvious, having a headline, having a simple head subtitle, having bullet pointed points or very, very short text that describes things, having an image, but not too many of them, and then including a little bit of social proof. So in the ideas here, you've got really simple headlines from Uber on a landing page of theirs, which came from an ad online. It's tap the app, get a ride. Couldn't not be more simple than that. And then to the iPhone is a landing page from an ad of theirs on Google, which is why there's nothing quite like the iPhone. Really simple. And then social proof comes on the fact that this one through Slack, which is a great chat app, is all about connecting teams and workmates together to better communicate with each other. It's saying, well, it's a messaging app for teams who put robots on Mars. So the idea is there, imagine what it can do for you. If it can do it for them, it can certainly help your team to better communicate with each other as well. A simple headline, really simple subtitles if you need one at all, bullet points or at least very short blocks of text, a really good image that just says it all for you. In the case of tap the app, get a ride, you can see it's all about tapping the app, tapping your screen. The iPhone is showing a picture of the iPhone, and you got one giant hero photo for Slack, which is all about the messaging app for teams who put robots on Mars. Could not be more simple than that, rather than getting very, very, very full on of a homepage that's got so much stuff going on. Now, this is, of course, very, very useful as well for people who are in the mobile age, which is all of us really. More people are accessing the web on mobile these days than any other device. The age of the desktop is definitely over. So we're talking about the ability for people to be able to read all this information simply while they're on the go looking at these things. Crazy, isn't it? Then we move on to using the right language. So this is something that somebody initially told me when I was a copywriter for a radio station. It was that sounding smart is dumb, because you only, if you sound smart, you're then making someone else feel dumb, then you're not inspiring them to become your customer because they cannot relate to you. And let's face it, do we ever want to hang around someone who makes us feel dumb? No, of course not. We want to get away from them as quick as possible. So using the right language and keeping things simple comes down to keeping your product name simple, not naming things with 15 different words just to describe what that product is called. That's not to say that you can have, just one word or two words for your description of your product. In fact, you wouldn't want to, that'd be crazy. But having a long line of words to describe the name of the product you've got. Now, remember that we had the hot dog cart guy. He had very long, complicated names for his products. If you got a lipstick, which is red, you could give it a name like Crimson Journey Red Lipstick. 4 words, very quick. Crimson Journey Red Lipstick. It makes it very simple, and you can picture that in your head, what a crimson journey is. It's like crimson is that color of the red in the sky when there's bushfires around, that kind of color. You start to get very evocative about it. But you start having a long name for it, Crimson Journey by Kim Kardashian Red Lipstick and Lip Liner series, then you're getting way, way too long. It takes up a lot of space. And remember, most people are going on these now. And if you've got something that's doing that, it's filling up half of the screen just with the name of the product. Now, not many of us actually care what the name of the product is. We just want to know what the price is and whether it does what we need it to do to solve the problem we have. Whether that is, I need a new red lipstick, or whether it means that I'm looking for a coaching service from a financial professional who can help me sort out what's going wrong with my bank account. Keep those product names simple. Keep your product description simple. Now, I don't expect you to do them in just one sentence, but if you can keep it as short as possible, it means you don't get those ugly read more things. You keep everything within it. If it's a lipstick, it's a lipstick. What can you say about that lipstick? If you're selling bars of soap, keep it, keep it very evocative and emotional and that people can imagine it, But remember, there's also a photo of your product to the side as well. They don't need to imagine too much. They've got the photo there to see what it is. And you can say something, for instance, imagine the smell of the ocean on a hot summer's day with the breeze flowing through your hair and the sand between your toes. That's how this new facial scrub will make you feel. Great. Really, really short. It's 2 sentences in a short block of stuff, and it says so much more than what anyone else would say. Yes, you can get a bit more into your specifications further down if you need to list your ingredients, or if you need to list the processes or the components that come together for that particular mechanical object you're trying to sell. But if you're selling a coaching service, the worst thing you could probably possibly do is over-explain what it is you do. So keep your product and service descriptions as simple as possible, because we don't want people to spend time reading about you. You want them to click the book now, buy now, download now, connect now button, not sit there reading through 3 pages of specifications about the provenance of the coffee that you're buying and selling. Now, when you try to start sound smart. Sorry, the words weren't coming out there at then. Don't try to sound too smart. Try to sound human. So imagine you're trying to explain this to somebody who has never had any exposure to anything like your product before. How would you describe it? Some people say, how would you describe this to a 5-year-old? And that's really cool, because it makes you simplify things down. You can't use educational or academic words to describe complex things. You've got to almost dumb it down. But you're not trying to dumb it down in a way that's going to patronize someone. You're doing it because you want them to get to the point. You don't want them too caught up on the specs. You want them to get straight from that I'm curious to clicking on the button to add it to cart and check out. And don't try too hard. When you try too hard to do these things, you end up getting really, really super caught up in words and editing and getting copywriters to help you out. And copywriters are fantastic, and they do a great job of helping you to cut things down to their most brief and most easy to communicate way. The problem is, though, when you overthink it, then you have to spend more money to get more people to look at it, to get it to be down to a point where people are going to read this in the quickest possible way to get to what you want them to do, which is to buy your stuff. So you can use the right language, and this is an idea from a thermal camera. So the weatherproof thermographic PoE camera for detection, plus a 6MP sensor module for identification. In addition, it's possible to use any Mobitech sensor modules, white, telephoto to hemispheric, with or without long pass filter, in the M15 thermal for identification camera software. This has already made me going to sleep. This is just ridiculous. There's so much in there in terms of specifications and technical stuff that it's not written for the consumer who just wants to see if everything at their home is okay while they're away on holidays. Now, a much more simple way of saying all of this. So a thermal camera is essentially part of a home security system. It allows the camera to see in the dark, not just see in the light. So you can see what's going on, whether things or people are there when they shouldn't be there. A much more simple way would be to explain what it means. Since everything generates heat, thermal security cameras can see as well at night as they can during the day. That's amazing. It just completely made that, I can look at that and go, that makes sense. I will upgrade my cameras to be thermal cameras as well, because I want to be able to see what is going on at night as well as what's going on in the day. Because the fact is, if I'm away, it's more likely someone's going to come in the dark of night and try to break into my house. I understand that. I get that. I don't have to have a degree in electrical engineering to understand what's going on there. It's just like, oh yeah, everything generates heat. Thermal securities can see that heat, and they display it on your screen so you can see just as well in the nighttime as you can see in the daytime. That's fantastic. I can actually imagine that in use in my house, and I'm likely to upgrade my security system to be able to do that. Now, when it comes to the right language, this comes down to how you explain who you are, and how you'll then also explain, what it is you do and how you do it, and who your ideal customer is. And I call this the elevator pitch. Now, this is not my format. This is a format used by a lot of people who are pitching very, very, very high value app projects to investors, angel investors, where they've got 30 seconds to meet someone and get them interested in what they're doing. You get very good at the elevator pitch, and it's in the format of I am, that's your name, my business or my product or my service is called, that's the name of your business, your product or your service. You know how, This is starting to go to draw someone in and go, you know how there's a problem with this and that people have this problem. Well, I solve that by, and then you explain what it is your process is. What I do is pretty much perfect for this kind of person or this kind of customer. So an example of that would be, I am Dante St James. My business is called ClickStarter. You know how small businesses have a lot of trouble when it comes to starting themselves up online and keeping the momentum going. Well, I solve that by giving them very simple coaching services that don't cost a fortune every month if they like, or even more often if they need it. So what I need to do is perfect for small businesses that are busy and sort of stuck and not sure where to go, but are willing and able to spend a little bit of time with me each month to get there. That's a really simple elevator pitch. Yours could be, if you're selling, let's say, that red lipstick before. I am Genevieve. My business is Lipsticks Are Us. You know how women get totally overwhelmed with the choices in the cosmetic world. We're told not to use this because it contains palm oil. We're told not to do that because it contains, nasty ingredients. Well, I solve that by an all natural ingredient sourced from ethical background of the most beautiful colored lipsticks and eyeshadows and foundations that a woman can buy. What I do is perfect for a woman who has a soul and has a conscience and purchases accordingly. That was just made up on the spot. Once you get the format of the elevator pitch right, that allows you to then take that elevator pitch into your website to explain who it is and what you do, what problem you solve, and who your ideal customer is. Once you have this down in place, this is the foundation for everything you'll do on your website, every word you write on your website, because everything you're writing is in this last line. What I do is perfect for. It's perfect for women who are busy and professional and have extra money to spend each month on beautiful things. Or what I do is perfect for men who are just starting working out again in their mid-40s after not working out for about 20 years. Great. What I do is perfect for people who love their dogs more than they love their own lives and want to spend that little bit extra on some premium foods that are good for them and good for the environment. You look at what that is, and every word you write on your website is going to match that particular kind of client, that particular kind of customer, that particular person who needs that particular problem solved in their lives. They want to be able to go vegan, but they don't know how. So what I do is perfect for brand new vegans who are just learning the ropes about how to replace the things they used to eat with new delicious food that isn't going to cost them a ton of money or a ton of time to prepare. So that could be your thing. If you're doing nutrition, you get sure on what it is you're solving and for who you're solving it for. And every piece of writing on your website will eventually match that. Even if you want to cut out a little cardboard cutout or get a magazine or a newspaper, cut out the picture of the person who you imagine is your perfect person that you're aiming towards, and then have that at your desk. I used to have it when I was on a radio station. We used to say, who was the people that we were broadcasting to every day? We had a guy, we had a girl. Their names were Jared and Becky, I think her name was, Jared and Becky. Jared and Becky had particular ideas. We cut out pictures from magazines, mounted them in the studio, and we took Jared and Becky with us into the studio every time. Every time I went to open up the microphone to talk to them, I look at Jared and Becky and go, does Jared and Becky what I'm just about to say? And if they didn't, I cut that break short and we do something else. So we swing it around to make sure that Jared and Becky, even though fictional people, were representative of our listener base. So that's a really good way of doing it too. I actually am working on my new client avatar, which is what it's called, to have that on my desk so I can say, she is the person I'm aiming my services at. Every time I write something, make sure I'm writing it to her or to him or to they, just to make sure that we're always on track for what we're doing. Urgency is a really good way of encouraging people to buy more stuff, because it's a way of getting through to this idea that if they don't get this from you, they may not be able to get this thing at all. Now, choice is the enemy of urgency, because we give someone too much choice and they get paralyzed by the analysis of whether they'll buy this thing or that thing or the other thing. In this case, you've got olive oil over there. If you've ever been to the oil section of Coles or Woolies, you would know what I'm talking about. There's so many dozens of different brands and different options. But something that supermarkets have really cottoned onto lately is they're reducing the amount of choice of brands that are available on their shelves, because they know that it stops people from buying things. So they've introduced home brands, which are usually priced well below it, and then reduce the amount of competitive brands against that, because it allows people to make choices quicker, get in, get out, and be satisfied with their purchase. So the jam study was held in America in a grocery store. They conducted 2 tasting sessions. In one session, people were allowed to sample up to 24 different flavors of jams. And in the other session, they only had 6 choices of jams. Now, that big table full of 24 choices of jam attracted 60% of the shoppers in store to come and try it. And the shoppers sampled about 2 flavors on average, because let's face it, we don't have a lot of time and our kids are probably pulling in our skirts and our jeans and telling us to move on. 3% of shoppers then went on to buy that brand of jam after sampling 2 flavors on average. But then when it was reduced and they ran their A/B test, here he is, the 6 choices of jam were reduced down from 24, and it attracted 40% of the shoppers. So it's less people in all, but those shoppers still sampled around 2 flavors on average, but 30% of the shoppers actually went on to buy the jam. The urgency of having to make a choice between a much smaller set of choices actually helped people much more easily to decide what they wanted. They were deciding now between 6 different jams of which one they would try. They tried 1/3 of those jams, and then 30%, so nearly 1/3 of those shoppers went ahead and actually bought the jam. As opposed to, on the other side, so few people of that 60% went on to buy jam because they were always working with buyer's remorse. The urgency to buy it there wasn't as great because there was a greater risk of missing out. If you chose one jam, you're missing out on 23 other jams. If you chose one jam, you're on the other side, you're only missing out on 5. So the urgency was a lot greater to choose from between 5, and you felt like you need to do it much more quickly. Whereas the 24, you dilly-dally around until you made that choice to choose the right jam you're after. So the idea is not to have too complicated a pricing structure for your services or products. Yes, have a number of colors. Yes, have a number of sizes, but you don't then need to have 15 variations of each style of that particular item you're trying to sell. Or if it's services, keep it to as simple as possible. Half-hour session, 1-hour session, 2-hour session. Get out. You don't have to then add all these additional, caveats to it. One of the things I'm trying to reduce at the moment is within my particular services of coaching, that I've got a 1-hour service, which is easy to choose, just one option, 1-hour service. But then I've got all these discounts. If you remember this, you get 50%. You remember that, you get 20%. You go through this program, you get it for this price. I've just got to simplify it down and go, pick a price, mate. Pick a price, and then ask people in the lead up to it and say, oh, okay, are you a member of the Chamber of Commerce Northern Territory? And they'll go, oh yeah, I am. Oh great, that's a 25% discount. And then they get surprised and delighted by the offer of a discount, rather than walking in and being utterly entitled to that discount from the moment they get in there. So that's something I'm working on at the moment with my own stuff, is to reduce the analysis, the paralysis of analysis, and get people to act more urgently to book me. So you could use urgency on your website by using scarcity. Now, scarcity in the case of an e-commerce website is doing things like showing your stock levels, showing you've only got a few left, showing what you're currently out of. A lot of stores will hide what's not available because they think, oh, I want people to concentrate on what is available, so they'll buy it. Well, what you're doing is, if you're showing things that are out of stock, if you've got 50 items and 25 are out of stock, what you're showing is that your store is popular, which makes it even more urgent for someone to go, oh, I need to buy this from them because I don't know when they're going to run out. Because look, they've run out of all this other stuff. I'll better get my thing now. That urgency allows someone to act more decisively at the time, not because you're manipulating it, but because it's human nature to want to go, I need to get this now because I don't want to miss out on it. We often will, a buyer's remorse is worse when we miss out on something we think we wanted or that we think we should have had, rather than going in and having buyer's remorse of something we did actually buy. It's just, we are motivated a lot more by the fear of what we lose than by the fear of the repercussions of what we gain. Think about the $100 note. If you pick up a $100 note in the street, you go, yay, that's great, and you go and buy something. It's out of your mind, it's out of sight, and it's done. You lose $100 on the street, and I tell you now, you're going to obsess about that $100 for the next week and a half. You're going to know, how stupid am I? That could have paid for all these groceries. I could have gone out for dinner. You'll think of all those things you're missing out on because you dropped that $100 note in the street and lost it. So we do definitely be much more motivated by the idea of missing out on something or losing something, more so than having a remorse over what we may gain. Using urgency on a website can also come down to SMS. SMS can create great urgency because it is always a very short, simple message. It can link to your online store and deliver a very urgent message saying as a flash sale alert, just for the next 24 hours, you use this code and you get 25% off at checkout. This is a great way to communicate with people. And the average of buying mass SMSs works out around about 16 cents per message. If you're sending it through to your list of say 1,000 people, well then it's 1,000 times 16 cents. Overall, that's a pretty good marketing return, and the amount of people who click and go get that is phenomenal. It's why so many of the biggest clothing stores online will use this kind of technique to get in touch with their customers. Domino's Pizza will do this. They know it's going to cost them 16 cents, but they get a $38 sale out of it. That 16 cents has not cost them much at all. Some of the best marketing you'll ever do is using the one kind of marketing that most people won't use, which is SMS. It's actually a great way to get through to people. And it keeps you very simple. It keeps your message very urgent, very simple, very, very contained, because you can't have long, great big text on there because people just will not read them. Get the message very short, get it out on SMS. And even if you've only got 30 previous customers, the chances of someone tapping on that and going to your website for an SMS is way, way higher than going through an email. In fact, around 10 times more likely to click on it and visit your website than just clicking on a link on an email, for instance. You can use the allure of popularity. So a lot of places will use this in showing that others have currently got this in their cart. 3 people bought this in the last 15 minutes. Those kind of messages you'll see popping up on websites. Platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce have got a lot of plugins that will help you do this, as has WooCommerce, which is the much more recent one. But you'll see a lot of plugins for WordPress websites that will replicate this as well. Now, just be aware, not all of these things are necessarily true. Sometimes they're actually fake. They're creating a social proof that isn't actually there. Especially like software people will tell you, somebody in Warrandyte in Victoria has just added this to their cart. And then if you sit around that website for the next 5 minutes, you'll notice that another person from Warrandyte happens to add it to their cart. It's just a pattern that goes over and over to create that urgency on a website. Now, ethically, you may not be very keen on that, but it is a good technique for getting people to act on your website rather than just sort of just surf along and just meander through your pages and not really do anything of any value to you. Last chance emails are also very, very good for doing this. So this isn't stuff you're doing on your website. This is stuff you're doing in your marketing. A simple email that's Spam Act compliant. In other words, they've got to have opted into your emails and they've got to have a way of opting out on each email. Having a very simple message, one message about something that's expiring soon, sent no more than 24 hours before. You send it 48 hours before, it's not urgent. You say, oh, this week only is not as powerful as in 24 hours, this will not be available anymore. That's far more powerful and creates that urgency you're looking for. Using urgency on your website can use people to incentivize buying now. Now, incentivizing the idea of buying now is quite often used on things like Wish. Now, Wish will give you the option to buy this now and you'll save it, but you'll save an extra $6 on this particular item. Buy this now on eBay and it will be shipped this afternoon, which is a great incentive for you to get it a lot quicker. Act now, essentially, and get this, whatever this is, a bonus, faster shipping, free shipping, or something like an extra gift. Adding these kind of things in helps someone to act right now, because you've done it and I've done it. We've added things to cart and we haven't actually then checked it out. We've just left it hanging in that cart. I've probably got a couple of $1,000s worth of non-actioned carts out there in e-commerce land that I haven't done anything with. Quite simply because they got there and went, you know what, the shipping's too expensive, I'll just leave it. But if I was to come back with a message to SMS or on my website, on my email to say, hey, we noticed you got something in your cart, you know what, we're going to halve the shipping cost for you just to get you to buy this. I go, yeah, you know what, I might actually pop in and do that. And quite often when you're doing shopping like this as a consumer, try these things out, add it to cart and then go away and watch those automated processes come and say, ooh, this person hasn't checked out quick. We should give them an incentive to do it. That urgency then helps someone to act a lot sooner to do the thing you want them to do. You can add a timeout to the cart. You can say that you have to reserve this for only 60 minutes or 15 minutes or 5 minutes. If you don't check out within 10 minutes, you'll lose this seat on this aircraft. That's what Virgin Australia does. Jetstar will do that. They'll give you a certain amount of time and then it's wiped clean. Now, there's obviously a logistical reason for that. They want to be able to make that flight available to other people. But on the other side, there's also a very good reason for this in that you want to be able to force people to act sooner. And you can even do things like, offering slight discount if people check out in the next 10 minutes. Quite often, that's exactly what Wish will do. They've got a $5 widget that will cost you maybe another $5 to get it delivered. But what they'll do is saying this will be reduced from $5 to $4.19 if you check it out in the next 10 minutes. So that's adding an incentive for you to do something. It adds urgency to what someone does. You can also use website chats, or chatbots, to offer an incentive. So if someone comes in, you can say, hey there, how about you drop in here and we'll give you free shipping on orders for the next 24 hours because you're a new visitor. That sort of stuff is great for incentivizing people to act now. You're basically bribing people to do the things you want them to do and to act in the way you want them to act. Now, scarcity and urgency doesn't necessarily replace the idea of doing that conversion optimization on your website, such as running your A/B test, checking to make sure your headlines are great, making sure your content is simple and easy and very, very clear to be able to consume and read. It just works hand in hand with it. So using all these scarcity and urgency tricks and tips and techniques, whilst they will have some effect on their own, they work even better when you do the optimization of your titles, the optimization of your photos, making sure your website loads super fast, that the checkout procedure is nice and simple and just goes through a couple of button clicks. These things work hand in hand to create a website that's so much easier for you to be able to go through. And then finally, there is what we call the trust factor. Do I trust this person to do what that they say they're going to do? And it's all basically offsetting the buyer's remorse of, I hope I don't regret making this purchase. So your consumer, your customer, your visitor to your website, they're going to be asking some very key questions that are all about this trust factor. They're going to ask, why should I trust you to deliver on the promise of getting this to me within 6 weeks? Do I trust you to get the results with me as a coach as I'm trusting you to give me? And then things like, okay, do I trust you that if it doesn't fit, that I'll get to return this and swap it for one that does? Because I'm used to going to clothing stores and I can take it back and swap it. Or what if I don't like it? Do I trust you to be easy and compassionate to work with if I change my mind? Will you allow me to return it? Will I get a refund? Is this really for me? Or maybe I can, maybe get it now, but send it back later. And the big one that people are going to be, am I going to waste my money by doing this thing with you? Do I trust you to not lead me to have thought that I've wasted my money? This trust factor is everything when it comes to your website. So if you've got a really kind of a dodgy looking website that doesn't look particularly well designed, it's not beautiful, it's not a breeze to work through, it doesn't look like the websites of the biggest brands that they deal with who they do trust, then you're already pushing stuff uphill. You're already going against the flow of the river of e-commerce, if you like. People need to trust you before they'll give you their money. And this takes a little bit of relationship building through things like social media, but just as much it takes optimization of your website to ensure that it's built not for your convenience, because you don't want to pay anyone to do it. It's going to be built for your customer's experience. And there's entire industries of people who work on what is called user experience, or UX. And that's all about making websites and online digital destinations much easier to use and a delight to use and work with. Now, I don't expect you as a small business, and there's a few of you on the call today, to be able to go and spend tens of thousands of dollars on getting someone to do conversion optimization on your website. What I do expect though, is when you set up your website, you'll follow the principles of the very best in the business. You don't have to create Maya's website if you're trying to create a clothing store. You don't have to create Michael Hill Jewelers website if you're selling your jewelry. But what you look at what the best in the business do. And it's just about invariably simple, easy to use, non-threatening, inspires trust, uses colors that are easy on the eye and not too harsh, and isn't going super hard sell straight at your face. They're actually giving you an option to be able to learn a bit more about it, but not get too wordy about it. You'll see it in any sort of coach's website, in any sort of services website that's the best in their business. They're going to have certain things and certain techniques that you can carry across on your Google website, on your Wix website, on your Squarespace or WordPress website. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get there. So the trust factor is, this is where the customer journey goes through. It starts off with, you don't understand my problem well enough, and that's, I don't want to buy from you. And then as they go, well, actually, you understand my problem, but I don't believe that you can solve it. Then you're moving on to when they go, well, I do believe you can solve it and you understand it, but my situation is special, so I'm not sure if this particular thing is going to work for me. And then if you get someone who goes that next stage along, go, well, you understand my problem and I believe your product works. I don't have a problem with that. And even though my case is special, it's going to work for me, but you're more expensive than the next best alternative. I'm going to use them instead. So this is overcoming objections along the way. So just be necessarily aware. You don't have to have written a full script to be able to deal with these objections as people are going. Quite often, frequently asked questions on websites will help this. You answer the "you don't understand my problem" well enough by essentially speaking to your target audience to understand what their problem is, so that they feel like they're safely understood. So if their problem is getting their carpets cleaned twice a year so that their parents, when they come to visit, won't think they're complete slobs, then you understanding that that's the kind of person it is, maybe something like, before you have people over, get your carpet clean, because you never quite know, who's judging. And you go, yeah, no, I'm a bit afraid of that because, my parents judge me every time they come to my house. Then the next step in that might be, well, okay, now I feel understood. That's great. But to be honest, I've never heard of you, so I don't believe you can solve my problem, because who the hell are you? And then someone who goes, well, actually, I understand who you are because I've seen your ads on TV, I've heard them on radio, or I've seen them at least on Facebook. Well, I clearly that you understand my problem, and I clearly believe that you can solve the problem. But because my situation is special, I don't think I'm going to go with you. And you can see how you build on it as you go deeper and deeper into your website, and understanding that your homepage even needs to answer these points. That you understand the problem, that you are able to solve that problem. You're able to solve that problem even if they've got a special circumstance, and that even if they've got a special circumstance, you are the one to choose based on the quality of your service or the reputation you have or your price point, depending on what it is you're selling yourself based upon. So be very specific when explaining what the problem is that your product actually solves. If you're selling solid shampoo, so we're talking about shampoo bars rather than bottles of shampoo, what problem are you solving there? Space on the shelf in the shower? Yeah, that could be one. The waste generated by shampoo bottles? Absolutely, going to be one of those. The fact that it costs far less to buy a bar of shampoo than what it costs you to buy a bottle of shampoo, that could be a great thing as well. It could be the carbon footprint of producing a bottle of shampoo compared to producing this solid shampoo bar. Be very specific about what the problem is that your product actually solves. Then you can show things like references, your ratings, testimonials, awards, and certifications can be very good. For instance, if you're selling services, being the best baker in Bakersfield 3 years in a row could be really very cool. You might be the only baker in Bakersfield, but it's an idea that you could put through there. Or if you go, I'm one of 7 Facebook accredited trainers in Australia, well, that could be a really powerful statement to someone who's got, they're not sure who to approach because they're working on their Facebook platform and they don't know what to do and they have no idea. So knowing that you are accredited to do that could be something very powerful for them to go, oh, well, I feel like I can trust them because they've got this accreditation. Showing case studies and testimonials. I would say case studies, in particular with services, are much more powerful than testimonials. Testimonials always feel like they're contrived and they're fake. So going to case studies, we worked with this company, we worked with this person, this is the problems we went through, this is how we solved their problems, this is the result of it later on. Where you're writing about it, funnily enough, conversely, even though it's not the words of someone else, it's your own words, people are likely to believe it because they're not being told that this is a testimonial. They're just being saying, this is a bit of work we've done. We're not making claims that we changed someone's life, but we went through a process and showed a little bit of what that process is to change their life. And then you can do things like drawing comparison with your competitors. If you've got a service or if you've got a product that's quite common in the marketplace and you want to draw a comparison between what you do and what they do, particularly if it's something online. So you can put yourself up against a, let's just say other naturopaths in your space. If you're a naturopath, these are the services I do. This is the services they do. What you're doing is showing why your product is worth paying a little bit extra money for if you do a little bit extra than what they do. Or if there's no difference whatsoever, what you're showing is that you can be judged against these others as equivalents, even if they've been in the market a lot longer than you have been. So the basics of this is you don't want to give someone a reason not to buy or book from you. So make sure you've got a super fast website that's not overcluttered with photos and videos. Make it easy to find how for people to contact you or act upon being on your website. So having a phone number very easy to find. If you're not using your phone number, a contact form or email address, make it really easy for people to get in touch with you. Make sure you're not cluttered too much. When there's too much going on the screen, that's why I keep my slides on PowerPoint very, very simple. I want to make sure it's uncluttered so there's not too much going on. And then stop over explaining what it is you do. Use your elevator pitch to be really, really sharp on what your services and what your products are, and speak more about them and less about you. I know you're trying to sell something and you've got a whole bunch of features and benefits you'd like to give them, but telling someone about what their problem is that you will solve is bringing it into their world rather than you saying, I do this, I do this, I do these things, I do these things. Show the benefit of what it is that they're going to get from that. What is in it for them and why should they believe you and go with you in the end? Thank you so much for being here for nearly an hour now to make sure you've learned a bit more about what conversion optimization is. There's lots of questions you could perhaps ask. If you've got them and you're watching this on YouTube, just whack them in the comments below. If you are live on this particular call, and there's a few of you, please do send me an email through this email address on screen, dante@treaty.com.au. I'm more than happy to answer some of those questions for you. Remember, you can use the one-to-one access to advisors like myself. If you'd like to get a bit of one-to-one advice time, it does cost, it's free if you're new to the program, $44 if you've never done a one-to-one through ASBAS Digital Solutions before, or if you have, it's $66 including GST for 1 hour of access to advisors just like me who can help you to unravel those digital problems you're having, or if even to just get a second set of eyes over what you're doing to make sure you're going down the right track. Please do reach out, and thank you and have a fantastic week. My name's Dante St James. Thank you again, and I'll see you soon.